in women's international cricket, it's hard to call India versus Pakistan an intense rivalry. This is because, much like the men's vertical, these two countries do not play bilateral cricket. And we've seen that it's a very, very lopsided head to head between these two nations. In the 15 T20Is that both these countries have played against each other, India has won 12 of them. Five of these wins have come in the T20 World Cup, with Pakistan winning only two in this tournament. So when you have numbers like this in front of you, it's hard to call an India versus Pakistan game an intense rivalry, an intense global rivalry. It isn't even the most fierce Asian rivalry in the game. But in the T20 World Cup that is underway in the United Arab Emirates, given the way this group is now turning out to be and how precarious some of these teams are in terms of their future in the tournament, this India versus Pakistan clash takes a lot of significance. I'm Lavanya and I'm covering the Women's T20 World Cup for Sportstar in the UAE. And in this video, we're going to be talking about this India versus Pakistan encounter. We'll take a small look at India versus New Zealand, which is sort of set off alarm bells for the Indian contingent and its fans around the world, and understand why this India versus Pakistan game will be really crucial for India's campaign in the tournament. Let's begin with that India versus New Zealand encounter. The White Ferns won this match by 58 runs, handing India a proper reality check in their very first game of this tournament. Now, remember, India was coming into this event with a lot of confidence surrounding this side. Harmanpreet was calling this the best squad that's traveled to a World Cup. Amol Majumdar, the head coach, was talking about how preparation and everything has sort of fallen into place and all the boxes have been ticked. On paper, it looked like this team was ready and raring to go. And given that New Zealand was on a 10 match losing streak, India would have really fancied its chances quite comfortably against Sophie Devine's team. But what ended up happening sort of hinted at a little bit of underestimation on India's part of New Zealand. When they came in, New Zealand won the toss and opted to bat first, and Suzie Bates and Georgia Plimmer set up a brilliant power play with an eventual 67-run partnership. They were, of course, helped by some shoddy fielding by India, which saw a lot of runs being leaked near the boundary, and Suzie Bates being given a lifeline by Richa Ghosh, who dropped a sitter, a high catch that came to her behind the stumps. From there on, Indians did peg back a little bit, and Renuka and Asha ended up getting a couple of wickets. But you had Sophie Devine coming in. She scored a 50. She anchored that innings and made sure that New Zealand ended with 160 runs on the board. This was a tall ask. If India managed to chase this target, it would have been its second highest run chase in all of women's T20Is. So, pretty much a lot riding on that chase for India. Besides that, India's run up to this tournament was entirely focused on filling that number three slot. Right up until the eve of this match, we as media people were asking the Indian contingent who their number three was. And the reason for this is because so many people have been sitting around in musical chairs trying to fill that position, including Jemima in and out of that slot, Richa Ghosh, although in ODIs. We've seen Dayalan Hemlata, Sajeevan Sajana, Yastika Bhatia, who's coming out of injury, who was expected to sort of slot into that number three position. We've even seen Uma Chetri get a match in this position. But the wheel and that needle eventually stopped at skipper Harmanpreet Kaur. Now, we've discussed this in a previous video, so you can go and check out why there are arguments to be made for her to get into that number three slot. But in this match, when we saw Smriti and Shafali sort of getting off to a slightly shaky start and Shafali falling in the second over, Harmanpreet came in at number three and was expected to just take a little bit of time to settle and then get going. But by the time she settled, she was gone. India had lost its top three within the power play itself, which was one of the things it was seeking to avoid. This is important to keep in mind when you look at the combination that India carried into this match. India went in with a 5-1-5 formation in this match. So you basically have five batters, one wicketkeeper, all rounder, and five bowlers. Now, in this situation, you would expect if you're going one batter short that the top five need to fire, which did not happen in this game. After the top three went back to the pavilion, Jemima, Richa, Deepthi all tried their best, but they just couldn't sink their teeth into that surface and really get something meaningful out of that pitch and chase that target down. Now, we won't go into too much detail from there on. There was, of course, a controversial run out. plenty of conversation and quotes coming in from the Indian management, from the New Zealand management. All of that you can check out on the Sportstar website. There are in detail stories there. But why that matters for the build up towards Pakistan is because the training session that happened ahead of the India Pakistan game saw India trying to undo a lot of those mistakes that they made against New Zealand. One prime example of that is Richa Ghosh spending more than, I think, 35 to 40 minutes working on just that one catch that was dropped off Suzie Bates. We saw her in under the hot sun in Dubai, constantly getting those high catches which she was trying to take as perfectly as possible. It looked like she was trying to work on her stance because I think her balance didn't really end up coming out too well when she was trying to take that catch in the match. And she tried that catch with her helmet on so that she could account for how much the grills of the helmet would maybe block her vision for catches like that. We also saw Renuka getting some customary fielding drills by the boundary line. There were nets happening as well, which we weren't allowed to go and see. But what we did see was Radha Yadav didn't really train today, and we saw Pooja Vastrakar extensively working with the physio, trying to balance a lot of weight on her left leg and ankle. Now, of course, against New Zealand, we saw that Pooja just got one single over. We asked Avishkar Salvi about it, the reporters in the press conference, and he said that when you carry a team with six bowling options, one person is natural to miss out. He didn't delve deep into any potential injuries, but what that is going to look like if Pooja is fit or if there's something we need to worry about, we'll know when we see her closer to the match. In Pakistan, India has a very formidable opponent. It's led by a very imperious 22-year-old Fatima Sana, who's been all around the world and trying to hone her skills in T20 ice. That includes the Super Smash in New Zealand, the Fairbreak Global Invitational, which is an ICC sponsored private event. We've seen her go all across the world to try and play cricket, to try and get better. And right now, she's the very brave leader of a Pakistan team that's filled with seniors, which is punching above its weight. They had a brilliant win against Sri Lanka in their tournament opener, and they'll hope to give India a little bit of grief on Sunday in front of what is expected to be a higher than 10,000 crowd in Dubai. Fatima Sana had a very interesting take on what has changed in the Pakistan team over the last couple of years. And the one thing she highlighted was power hitting. Indians know this conversation really well because this was a conversation we were having about our cricket a couple of years ago. Right after the press conference was done, we saw her walking over to the middle of the field on a hot day, getting those power hitting drills out of the way. In her training, the focus was on hitting the ball long in the V, and we've seen that that is the area, that is the angle of space that she likes to score in, even in competitive games. Another very important person for Pakistan will be Sadia Iqbal. She took 3 wickets in the first game, and she's had a good past couple of months. And in the run up to this game, she will be keeping an eye out on potential matchups and how she can contribute to the team's cause, particularly in those middle overs. For India, it is an all round performance that is required, but the onus is undoubtedly on the batters. Let's assume Pakistan beats India. It will blow this tournament wide open and it will definitely be an upset. India, meanwhile, will hope to keep the negativity away and register that win against Pakistan so that its campaign in the T20 World Cup and its bid for that knockout spot can remain alive.